Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are returning, thank you for joining us again. And for those of you who are here for the first time, my show is all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. What is it they bring to the table? What makes them a great artist? What gets them from point A to point B and beyond? And I'm very excited about today's guest because she truly is the real deal. She walks the walk and she talks the talk. Sometimes they say the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. And in the case of Katharine "Kat" Kramer, that's absolutely true. Just like her father, Stanley Kramer, her whole goal in her career and her life and career is to celebrate and to bring awareness to social interests such as bullying and animal rights and everything. Before I bring her on, I'd like to give just a little glimpse of her at work, and God bless her because she does so many incredible things. Ladies and gentlemen, Kat Kramer.
We're so honored today to have as our special guest Alan and Marilyn Bergman, and Marilyn's going to be speaking later on behalf of the movie Yentl.
My name is Emmanuel Shrieky, and I am here today. Today is the first day of this screening series where we're screening Yentl. I'm here specifically talking about an organization I'm a part of called Raise Hope for Congo, which is about the empowering the women of Congo. Their organization is all about helping fight crimes against humanity.
We're at the Cove premiere, and this is Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World. Had to have the Cove because, a lot of movies say that they're making changes. This film really is changing the world.
I'm so honored to have you here today, but what are you most looking forward to with the young activists that are going to be here this afternoon?
Well, when we started the movie, I really wanted the movie to inspire a legion of activists to confront ocean problems. I mean, to me, all the awards are the collateral of what happens on the way to trying to solve the issues, hopefully.
Preparations are underway for the preview of a new documentary called Elephants and Man, A Litany of Tragedy. The red carpet event is tonight and is part of Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World series.
Say that just because it's better doesn't make it right. Just because the situation for the elephants now may be better, it's still not where they belong.
At the zoo, yeah. Because elephants literally walk 100, 10, 20, 40, 50, 100 miles a day. And when you see an elephant in the zoo, they're really terribly troubled. They're suffering physically and mentally. They're nowhere near what you would see in the wild.
Well, I think, she's just tackling the most amazing things. Documentary film, when it gives you, profound information, is at least as good as the best drama, because it gives you something unbelievable and something that's true and something that can be heartwarming or heart-wrenching.
We're together at the historic Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, which is the home for my screening series, Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World.
I look for films, just like my father, Stanley Kramer, made movies with social issues. And in my own small way, I'm trying to carry on his legacy by having the screening series. And I wanted to do something on the bullying crisis. You hear it's out there every day, and especially about homophobia and school violence.
That's why I'm so glad that her film series, Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World, this is the fourth in the series, and we're having a screening on Sunday here in LA, and it gets the word out. The film becomes a tool to educate teachers and students.
Besides the students, the teachers and the parents have to really look at these issues.
Yeah, hopefully this film is played in schools and PTA meetings and churches and etc. The ladies, Lily Tomlin and Kat Kramer, best of luck to you with your film. Thank you so much.
And this film specifically is about homophobia, which is, I mean, it hits on bullying, but the homophobia is even more of a crisis.
Was it emotional being the narrator, doing this movie?
Oh, yes, of course, I felt the obligation to be really, to do the best job I could. But I was also proud to be asked and to be a part of it.
Everyone, it's Kat Kramer, and I want to tell you, I want to give you the biggest virtual hug from all of us who have benefited from the great work that you're doing. And before we jump into this incredible career that you have mapped out for yourself, I want to ask, how are you doing really in the midst of this crazy world that we now find ourselves in?
Oh, thank you so much, Richard, for having me. I'm honored to be my debut on your show. And how I'm doing. I mean, I don't know, it's tough adjusting, but here we are adjusting to the virtual world, trying to make the best of everything that's been going on the past few months, and the stress from the election and the pandemic. And
you mean there was an election?
I still feel like, it's still happening. But,
doesn't it feel like it's been 40 years going through the desert?
I've been, since the pandemic happened, I just have recently adjusted to Zoom and everything being online. It took a while, but I think that's probably the best thing that's come out of the pandemic, because it's been such an awful year. I mean, one for the record. I mean, except for like the flu of 1918, can you think of anything else? I mean, there's been world tragedies and world upheavals, but this one has to be atop of the list, at least in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the best part about it, I mean, there's been some, the people have been rallying together and really helping, I think, in all the communities. But being able to be online and Zoom and webinars and have a virtual experience means that you can include a lot of people that normally you wouldn't be able to, that would have to fly in or, deal with the time zone. So I think just that adjustment alone and being able to be here with you and not have to cancel. I mean, every live event and in-person Q&A or whatever has been postponed or canceled indefinitely, but they've really managed to make it happen. And you've really done that. You've been able to reach so many people with your show during the pandemic. It's amazing. Well, I don't know. Do you find that it's been a blessing in that sense, that you're able to, engage more people and reach more people and have more of a journey learning? Just for me alone, I've been learning this whole time about so many issues that I needed more research on. And I've been able to work on projects and have the time to develop scripts and that I normally wouldn't. So it's been a big adjustment, but I'm kind of happy for some of it because it's given me more time away from having to be at an event.
Exactly. Well, I have to say this, and I've said this to you before, and I hope I don't embarrass you or put you on the spot with this, but you are such a classic beauty. You are in the mold, I've told you this, of Arlene Dahl, Rhonda Fleming, that gorgeous red hair, and I have yet to see you at any event where you were not the most glamorous one in the room. You're always the most glamorous one. And I want to ask you, when the cameras are not on, do you just wear sweats and everything around the house?
I don't know. I think I learned a lot about the glamour part of the business from my mother, who is a role model to me. And she's, an award-winning actress and now a producer. She also happens to be Mrs. Stanley Kramer. But she had a great career as an actress. And I learned a lot of things just from watching her, but also what she taught me. And she comes from the era, like you were saying, the Arlene Dahls, the Rhonda Flemings, even the Lucille Balls. I mean, that era where you had to be glamorous and kind of maintain that and never be seen in public. So I don't know if I actually consciously do that. It just kind of inbred in me. But I do believe that, like Dolly Parton and a lot of people I look up to, they always try to look as glamorous as possible. And obviously, when I'm playing a role that's not glamorous, then I go off, I'm committed 100%. And I look for roles that aren't glamorous to have that other experience of not being on all the time. But I do think that as entertainers and performers and just being in the public eye, you have a certain responsibility to, live up to a standard. But yeah, I'm not conscious of that. And certainly during the pandemic, people kind of, in adjusting to the Zoom experience, didn't quite know how they should present themselves. But I think it's just the way you would anyway if you were going out, and just kind of use that as a tool. It is hard not to be able to hug people, and as you said, we have to give virtual hugs, and it is really a big adjustment, I think, and a lot of people can't handle that. But I think this is the new normal. It was already kind of happening anyway before the pandemic. People were using teleconferencing and webinars and Zoom, so I just think it's a natural transition. But it will be nice to be able to get back to somewhat of a new normal, and hopefully we'll be able to do that in 2021.
Now, I was interviewing
someone. I take my screening series on virtually. That's something I'm planning to do, because I just kicked off the 10th anniversary, and then I made a couple of films and worked on some projects. I took a year in between the kickoff of the 10th, and it was supposed to happen this year, the continuation of that. And because of the pandemic, I had to put it on hold like everybody else had to. But I like the in-person experience with Kat Kramer's films that changed the world. I like the being able to have all those activists and students and, people making a difference all together in one room. But I will take it virtually if that's what I have to do to get the films out there and keep the award part of it going. I will, with the Hunt for Humanity Award, which will happen, the next one will happen in 2021.
Now, I want to talk about the history of Kat Kramer's films that changed the world. But before we get there, I want to mention that today marks 268 days since the theaters shut down here in New York. And of course, it's had a ripple effect across the country. The arts have all been shut down for the most part, except for what we are able to do here virtually. I want to ask you, what did your calendar look like on March 11th of this year prior to everything shutting down?
I was very busy. I was supposed to start a lot of film projects. I'm working on my new solo show, and I was hoping to have that, at a theater live sometime in within the year, even next year. But to have that experience being in front of a live audience, I had a lot of speaking engagements lined up as a motivational speaker, and Kat Kramer's films that changed the world. And, so the last event I went to was Shakespeare Center LA had a fundraiser with the great Al Pacino, who I look up to, and I helped them spread awareness about this one night reading. He was doing Pablo Hummel. He starred on that and won a Tony Award, the basic training of Pablo Hummel on Broadway back in the 70s, and he did a reading. And it was also to raise money for our veterans. So that was the last event I went to at the Wallace. And literally March 8th, I'll never forget it, I decided then, that was before the complete shutdown on the East Coast and the West Coast, but that was a theater experience, and that was the last event I went to. Mm-hmm. But there's a phenomenal actor and environmental activist, a friend of mine named Rye Armstrong, based in New York, and he's putting together something with the Actors Fund, which I'm helping him with. I'm co-producer on it, and that'll be announced soon, but it's something to help the theater community, the Broadway community at large, and it's for COVID relief, and it's going to debut in March 12th, 2021 to mark the 1-year anniversary of the shutdown. And wow. It's there'll be more info about it. I don't want to give too much of it away now, but that's something to look for.
Well,
I'm very, very
Kat, I want to go back to, believe it or not, the 5-year-old Kat Kramer, because I think that 5 years old is that pivotal point in a person's life where just before they start school, before they start interacting with a lot of other kids and everything, that's, to me, their authentic self before the outside influences of the world come about. And I'd like to know a little Kramer.
Well, what were my memories you're saying? Or it's funny you just brought that up because I'm working on a book, kind of keeping the theme under wraps, but I will be touching on my early life. And I just recently did a monologue that I wrote myself because I grew up in a haunted house. It was quite a haunted house, and it's actually in Beverly Hills, where a lot of the homes around there are known as being haunted. But I created a monologue for Halloween virtual mixer for Los Angeles Women's Theater Festival, which I'm also on the advisory board, and I did one of my solo shows through them, and I'm working with them on, they've been around for almost 30 years. They're probably the longest running for solo theater performance female in Los Angeles. And so I debuted this monologue, and it was about me at 5 years old, having this experience in a haunted house. And so that brought up a lot of memories of just growing up. I did grow up the first few years of my life in California, but by the time I was like 9 years old, my father and mom, they didn't really want me in show business, and I've always wanted to be in the business.
Well, I want to ask you about.
I was performing at an early age.
I want to ask you about that for a moment. At every person in the business, there comes a pivotal moment where you decide that this is going to be the path that you're going to grow on. Now, of course, your father, Stanley Kramer, incredible body of work and worth with your father. At what point did you decide that you wanted to devote your entire life to being in this business?
I just have always, it's almost like I was born in the trunk, so to speak. I mean, my mom says I was always looking for my Klieg light, and I started in ballet and dancing.
I love that.
I was like, already knew how to dance. I don't know if it was reincarnation or, past lives, because I do believe in that, like Shirley MacLaine.
Me too.
But I came out as an entertainer, basically. Like at 2-3 years old, and then by the time I was 4 and 5, I was taking ballet every day, which is very, very young to be already knowing you wanted to be in dance. I mean, I was kind of demonstrating the class, I understand, to the other kids my own age at 5 or 6, and I was on point very early. I think before I was 10. I don't remember. I think I might have been 8 years old, which is very early to be on point, and to go into classical ballet. And then soon after that, I decided I didn't want that life. I wanted to be in dance, singing, music, acting, more musical theater, that part of the industry, and not classical ballet at all. So that was kind of a decision that was made early on. And then I always wanted to be in the arts and create and write and produce and eventually direct. I don't look upon it as like, acting, singing, producing. It's all one to me. But I've always wanted to be in the film industry, the entertainment industry, show business, the arts, however you describe it. I've never wanted to do anything else. It was never even something that crossed my mind. And I didn't really realize who my parents were. Or my godmother, Katharine Hepburn, until maybe I just knew them. I didn't even realize that what their standing was in the industry or what contributions they made until later on. So I think, because I don't come from a show business family in the sense of like Broadway musicals and wanting to dance and sing on Broadway. None of my parents, my godmother was on Broadway, but strictly as an actress. I was always the song and dance kid, and that was my early roots. So that is different than my family, I think, who were strictly acting and my father being an editor and a director and a producer and a filmmaker, the, you know, show business element was never really in our household. So that was something for me that was kind of my own thing. And I just never stopped doing it. I may have focused on other aspects of the industry, but I've never stopped acting or performing.
Now,
I hope a lot more of it.
Was there a particular moment that changed for your parents in terms of accepting the fact that, like it or not, this is the direction you're going in?
When we moved up to Seattle, Washington, because they didn't want to raise me or my sister in the Hollywood atmosphere, they were hoping that I wouldn't want to be in show business at all, even though I was already like a child performer here and you know, performing all the time, and even not just, you know, actually in the industry, but I would have like shows in the backyard and put shows together and have the neighborhood kids and direct them and star in them. And so I just always wanted to be basically on the stage. That was my early goal.
Mm-hmm.
And Mame was my favorite musical. I know you love that. And Angela Lansbury was my idol. And, you know, I've had a lot of role models, but I remember being very, you know, fascinated by her and listening to the music from Mame. And I knew all the Broadway shows, like at 5 or 6, because my dad used to, he knew I liked that, so he would bring me that. He also brought me Rolling Stones records, and that's kind of how my love of the Stones. A lot of it was my father and my mom, just knowing my interest in music and dance, and they, you know, introduced me to all this music, and that's how I knew all the classic rock or Broadway musical theater at a very early age. And none of my peers were into that at all. I was never really into like, you know, kids shows. I was into, you know, like South Pacific, Maine.
Now, were you exposed to the arts in school? Arts and education is a platform that I'm very passionate about. So were you exposed to the arts in school at all?
Well, yes and no. I mean, one of my missions actually, besides social issues, is music education and the arts, which I consider also a necessary issue that we have to address. And you know, the way that the arts are cut in schools is just the worst. And music education is a big part of my solo show. That's actually one of the running themes that I would, you know, perform it in my duet with Mick. That's one of my solo shows. I think when I was mostly just, so that's actually one from the debut at the Actors Fund from my duet with Mick, which is a fantasy show about my search for Mick Jagger and wanting to do a duet with him, but it's a parody of The Wizard of Oz, basically, and I play a lot of characters in it, including Auntie Kate, based on my godmother, Katharine Hepburn. So it's a little bit autobiographical, but it's also a fantasy kind of parody of There's No Place Like Home theme from The Wizard of Oz. And I'm revamping the show. But back to when my parents decided, when we moved up to Bellevue, Washington, which is part of Seattle, they didn't know that that was a very big arts community, and that like next to New York and Chicago, Seattle has lots of theater and lots of music, and they're very progressive in the arts. So I became their leading child performer, starring in professional theater there, doing Annie, singing with they had like big bands, a lot of musicians that had played with Count Basie and had been part of the big band era, had migrated up to Seattle. And so I started singing with them, playing music and making music. And so I learned all the big band songs and all the music of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, all the main Great American Songbook. Mm-hmm. And there was H.B. Radke, his father was Fred Radke. He was he had a kiddie preteen big band, and I was their girl singer. So I was always performing. I used to perform on New Year's Eve and do whole Judy Garland tributes at the leading hotels in Washington. So I was already working in the business as a young kid performer and actor. So I didn't really have arts in the schools because I was doing it outside of the school. And then I went to like a professional school there and was tutored a lot. So yeah, I've been like, the leading young actress up in Seattle, so I didn't have a normal childhood up there either. So when my parents tried to get me out of the business, they just sent me headlong into it, basically. But I always really wanted to go to New York, and I did. I did live there for a while and study at HB Studios and perform. And my dad was from Hell's Kitchen, so he was one of those New Yorkers that couldn't wait to leave. And once he came to California, he never wanted to go back. And so I lived on my own there. I lived with my grandmother, because I was under 18. But we eventually, the whole family moved back to Southern California. And my dad never wanted me to, as long as I was living in his house, he wanted me to live with him and my mom and not stay in New York. So I basically came back to the West Coast. But at one time, I just wanted to stay in New York and never come back to LA. So, I feel at home. I've always felt at home there. It took me a long time to, get used to the West Coast again after living in the East. I don't know, it's just something about the energy.
Now, you mentioned earlier growing up that you was your godmother and a normal family. When was the first time that you saw her on film?
I don't remember. I just remember meeting her, and my mom tells me some stories like that she came to the door and I said, "Who are you?" And she goes, "I'm Kate. Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Kate too," and slammed the door. And I was already temperamental at like 4 years old. So I also remember her coming over and I tried to tie her up. She was like a big kid and I had this rope and I tied her up in the living room and she was very strong and she untied the rope. And I knew early on that I would like incorporate her as a character, but the character of Auntie Kate that I play in my show isn't really her. It's like an alter ego version of her. And so because she sent my parents a note when I was born saying with her christening dress, she will always be telling them, spell it with an A, because nobody ever spells her name right. So I have this song called Katharine with an A, which is a parody of Liza with the Z. And it's really myself and her, Auntie Kate, battling for who's gonna win at the end of the song. Mm-hmm. And I've done it in my show, but I'm going to be doing it actually is a standalone piece of material that I plan to do just on its own, not just in my show. And that was written by Shelley Goldstein, who's really great at writing.
I love Shelley. Yeah, absolutely.
She did a nice job on that song.
There are so many areas of your life that I want to focus on, and we only have an hour, so I'm going to just hit some of the highlights. And one of the highlights that I want to hit on, you have been very, very fortunate, and I'm bringing this up for a specific reason, because of a tribute that I'm going to share with everyone. But one of your mentors, and you've been very, very fortunate, is Lily Tomlin. How did that come about? And what have you learned from Lily over the years? Because you also, which I'm going to talk about, have played some very unique, interesting roles as well, male and female, just as Lily does.
Well, first of all, where can I start? She's such an influence on me, as you know. And actually, the male characters that I play and that I'm still working on were inspired by the fact that she was the first to really do that, especially on Broadway, to be male drag characters and dress them up. And I'm working on one in my new show that I haven't debuted yet that will be, a composite of a lot of people that I've known through the years. But she has always been someone I looked up to and admired for her being an individual like my godmother, never having to play by the rules, never having kids, never even being married throughout most of her career, developing her own material and creating characters and not really having to, work with people if she didn't want to. She could always go off and do her show and make a living that way and not have to, wait around for the phone to ring. But also she's a real activist, especially in animal rights and many issues. But she and I really came together on the elephant issue because we both are passionate about advocating for wildlife and animals. And elephants especially do not belong in the zoos or circuses. And there's this one elephant that's still at the LA Zoo named Billy the Elephant, who's been there for over 30-something years. He's suffered, and he's still at this big exhibit at the LA Zoo, and no one's ever been able to get him out, and it's been a big controversy. And so on my third installment for my screening series, Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World, Lily came on to host and participate with this film that was made by Malia Kaplan, Voice for the Animals Foundation, called Elephants and Man, A Litany of Tragedy. It's a very hard film to watch, and I just presented The Cove, before that as my second installment, so it was in line with wildlife and animals being protected and not having to be treated so cruelly by human beings, just to put it bluntly. And she and I really bonded on the elephant issue, and Cher came and also hosted with us, and Tippi Hedren, and then Lily really got involved with my screening series because I was every year I was doing it once a year. I ended up doing it multiple times a year because it's not a film festival, it's a screening series, but I spaced them out, and each film is a different issue, and I try not to repeat because there's so many issues we have to deal with.
God.
Lily really became a mentor to me just as an activist, because the next film was a movie that she narrated called Teach Your Children Well, all about the bullying in the schools. And the school violence, especially with LGBTQ youth. And she and I would do the circuit on radio and CNN and KTLA and, just all these different shows talking about the issues. And she also participated as the host with Dr. Helen Caldicott when I had the 5th anniversary for a film called Fallout, which was about the making of On the Beach and the end of the world. My father was the first one to really make a film that was based on Neville Shute's book, but about the nuclear bomb and kind of what during the pandemic, what we all still feel that the world will end and our species will be extinct. So Lily has been the main ambassador for the series, and I'm going to be presenting other films that she's a part of. But she also is a role model to me as a performer. And so I did a whole musical salute to her called Dear Lily Tomlin at the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters when she was honored with the Pioneer, actually it's the Art Gilmore Award at the Pioneer Luncheon. And that became one of the highlights of just doing this salute to her, and also a highlight of my career, but also just as a gift for all that she's brought to me. So one of the announcements I wanted to make is that that's the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters.
Can you hold the announcement?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to show you them from that
Okay.
event, and then we'll come back and talk about this afterwards.
Perfect segue into it.
Thank you. Yes.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. Whether on screen or under bright lights, there's no one else in the business to match you at hitting the heights. You got to be you. You gotta be you. What else can you do but be the best? Whether you're Mary Jean or you're Edith Ann, whether you're Trudy or Ernestine or you're a soul-singing man, you gotta be you, a whole lot of you. Whatever you do proves how you are blessed. need. When it seems all is sunk, you just hit the road and you pack your trunks. Now you won't settle down or settle for less. You stand up for women's rights and also for elephants. A singular life, an unmatched career. The world over, the sound of your voice makes an audience cheer. We all look up to the magic of you. Lily, you've got that fire I'll never tire, and we'll always admire how you got to be, how you gotta be you. Thank you so much.
And I want to share this picture of your gorgeous mom and so thank you. That was incredible.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's funny because I've done 2 musicals for Lily. That one was "You Gotta Be You," which is a parody of "I Gotta Be Me," and so that was from a live performance. Or I've done a couple different places, but I just used that vocal for the montage. I think that was from the 30th anniversary of Pause, because Lily also was, very involved with Performing Animal Welfare Society, back to our wildlife conservation passion that we both share. But the first salute I did was called "Dear Lily Tomlin" for the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters a few years ago. And it's become, a very popular song because I don't want to give it away. For those of you who haven't seen it, a lot of people have seen it because it went viral, but you're going to have a chance to see it in a new way starting tomorrow, because the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters has recently changed their name to the Hollywood Media Professionals.
Oh, wonderful.
And yeah, we just changed it. After I did that performance for Lily a few years ago, they asked me to join the board of directors to kind of, bring young blood into the organization and keep it going and get new members. And it was established over 50 years ago by Art Gilmore, recognizing the greats in show business, music, television, film, broadcasting, even sports, but with the emphasis being on radio and broadcasting and television. And, that we have luncheons, exclusive luncheons for members several times a year, and everyone from Larry King to Johnny Mathis to Ed Asner to Lily, Michael Feinstein, and the list goes on and on. Barbara Eden, Henry Winkler, so many people have been honored. And so during the pandemic, and we had just changed our name, we decided, because we couldn't have any luncheons and the organization needed to keep going, that we would have a new YouTube channel that's archival, celebrating our past, and also for students and fans of the different legends that have been honored, to educate them about the industry and about the greats in our business. So starting tomorrow, there's going to be the HMP Celebrity Showcase channel, and we're going to have an honoree a month featuring the clips from the honorees' luncheons, the Pioneer Luncheons. It's now called the Hall of Fame Award, as opposed to the Art Gilmore Award, but we haven't had any luncheons since last year. So I get to kick off the channel, which I'm excited about, with the Dear Lily Tomlin salute. There'll be a special introduction. I'm on for the whole week, and then each Sunday is going to be
something that will be streaming live?
culminating with Lily at the end of the pardon.
Is this something that will be streaming live, or
Yes, it'll be on YouTube, but it's every week will be a new segment. So I'm kicking off the entire channel, which will be ongoing. I mean, we already have programming to last until early 2022.
Wow.
So the first honoree of the month is Lily Tomlin, and it'll show different segments from that luncheon where I performed. And I actually opened the show at the luncheon, so they want to recreate that whole, the way it was at the luncheon where I'm opening, but I'm actually launching the channel with the Dear Lily Tomlin salute. And then there'll be speeches every Sunday from different people that have been on the dais, and no one's ever seen these before. So, it's from our archives, culminating with Lily at the end of December. In January, it's going to be Rich Little, and so he's the honoree of the month. And then in February, it'll be the late Carl Reiner with an interview that he did with Tom Bergeron. And then we haven't announced the rest of the year yet, but will be, Johnny Mathis, Michael Feinstein, Ed Asner, Dick Cavett, the late Regis Philbin. I mean, there's so many amazing people that we've honored. Engelbert Humperdinck. When you take like over 50 years and you dig into the archives and find all these amazing luncheons that are like Friars Club roasts, and that no one was ever, had never seen, it gets pretty exciting. So that's the big announcement, is that we're officially launching. The organization is going through a lot of transitions right now because we haven't been able to do anything during the pandemic, but luncheons will be scheduled again in events whenever we can go back. And it's just going to, show people what we've been doing in terms of celebrating these great icons. And some of them passed away just during the pandemic. So we're going to be, Norm Crosby's on one of them. There's not only the honorees, but incredible speakers on the dais. So for me to be able to open the program when Lily was honored, and then now to be able to launch this archival celebration of the history of the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters, now called HMP, is really thrilling. And I think it'll give people something to do during the holidays too, to start watching this. But it's an evergreen archival celebration. It's not just because of the pandemic, it'll be up forever. So that's really a good way of preserving the heritage of what the organization's about. And there's really nothing else like it. Because it isn't the Friars Club. It may have that same kind of roast theme to it when you're roasting someone, but they also toast the honorees. And I know when we go back, there'll be a lot of great people we still have yet to have celebrated, and they'll be celebrated at the luncheons. So Lonnie Anderson is one of them. There's just so many. We'd be here all day, but most of the ones that they know that the channel's coming, and they'll be able to give their fans and their followers a glimpse into something that was archival, that celebrated their career, that those people missed because it was really only for the members, and they'll be able to spread awareness about the channel too. So we're just all really excited about it.
I think that's wonderful.
I think it celebrates the industry. When people are stuck at home, they'll be able to feel like they're there,
And if there's anything, word out, please.
Absolutely, yes.
I want to go back.
We're very, very looking forward to it. We've worked on it.
I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Maybe that.
Yeah, that will help a little. But I want it's been 10 years since Kramer, Films That Changed the World, began. What has been the biggest surprise for you over the past 10 years with the product that you put out there? And what are still some of the biggest obstacles that you're facing in terms of keeping this going?
Well, that's a great question, because I'm trying to create a foundation with it, because I don't charge admission. They're invitation only. But I want to open it up to the public, and have been trying to figure out a way to make that happen, because I have so many, such a need to spread awareness. I think one of the things I'm most proud of is that I advocate for the differently abled and the deaf community, especially in the arts. I mean, I played Helen Keller when I was a preteen, and I've always been interested in advocating for, those that don't get a fair shot at things, and the deaf community especially. And there's so many of them in the arts, not just Deaf West and not just Marley Matlin, but there's so many artists and creatives in the deaf community and the deaf community at large too that are activists that they don't get a chance to be involved with a lot of things. For instance, films, when they come out on DVD, they can see them in the closed caption, but they're not able to experience in a movie theater. And we're trying to change that in the industry. It's been in the works for years, but we're a bit behind. So I always make sure in the last few years that when I present a film that it's open caption, and I've tried to incorporate that. I've had ASL interpreters and sign language interpreters there, so that when the deaf talent comes, or deaf activists, deaf creatives, that they have a chance to experience the film and the Q&A just like everybody else. And also for the blind, audio description is now becoming mandatory. So films and not just documentaries, but features and even on television, it's becoming mandatory with the guilds that they be captioned and also have audio description services. And so I'm doing that with all the films that I'm making. I'm making sure that that's worked into the budget, and that it's going to be available and that it's accessible. And this film Turnover that I'm proud to be in, I also was a co-producer on it. It wasn't through Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World, but it's still a social issue film. But it's also a comedy, a family film, and a foodie film, if you can grasp all that. It has many things going for it.
I love that.
We had 2 Down syndrome actors as lead, supporting lead parts, which is really rare, I think, to find that in the script. And then when I signed on as a part of the cast, and then the phenomenal filmmaker Linda Palmer, who cast me in the film, she also wrote the script, and it was all female empowerment behind the scenes. It was a primarily female crew and production team. There were a few males, but it was primarily female. She knew I worked a lot with the deaf community, so she asked me, do you think we should bring that element in? And I said, yes, I think it would be good to have deaf talent and utilize them, because there's so many of them, and bring that in and really have it be inclusive and have a lot of that representation. So there's deaf talent in the film. And so I'm really proud of that. But I think with the screening series, one of the first ones I did to bring Lily back into the picture was her film Grandma, that came out a few years ago, which was one of her best performances. Didn't have any deaf characters, but her film debut was in Nashville, where she played the mother of 2 deaf kids, and she learned sign language for that movie, and she later signed on Sesame Street back in the 70s. So she was already known in the deaf community as a crossover artist, someone who was hearing but also used sign language on film. So I had a whole open caption screening of Grandma, and we had 10 ASL interpreters, and it became a big thing that I would take a film that was a mainstream movie that was screening in theaters, that was part of the awards conversation, and offer it to an audience that was half hearing, half deaf and hard of hearing. So that's something that I really learned, was how to incorporate that. But with the screening series, it's always a challenge. It's always hard to get these social issues out there. As you know, it's hard to even make films with social issues in them, as my father always did. And especially, he didn't make documentaries, but I present documentaries primarily, and I'm also in the process of making them and making projects that are all animal rights, female empowerment, dealing with seniors in our society. I mean, there's so many issues that I'm still trying to get out there. So those are the obstacles. It's just raising sponsorship money to keep it going, and get the foundation in a position where I can actually raise serious money for the issues.
Now,
even this other film
you are amazing in terms of everything that you do, not only behind the scenes, but the work that you do on the scenes. And I'm looking at the clock, and before we run out, I really want to focus for a moment on your acting career as well. Because here, this is the show, Child of the 70s. And I'm going to go in on a close-up right here. Unbelievable. I mean, tell us about this.
Well, I love Child of the 70s. Michael Vaccaro created it and stars in this
one of my dear friends. I love
It's very funny. It's a campy show. We finished, we wrapped, it only was 5 seasons, but I came in the 3rd season. I was in 3, 4, and 5 as Frances Rye, who's a soap opera diva, kind of like a cliche Susan Lucci narcissist, but she morphs into these different characters. And so what I love about was the freedom to be able to create that character as Rabbi Herbert Schweitzer-Gold. And, you know, that was the first male character I created for the show. I've also created other characters that were female, but I have another one called B. Fred Baker, who was in that picture. And I don't want to give too much away because I want people to watch Child of the 70s. You can still see it, and it's on YouTube and other platforms. But the great thing about it is I'm able to take those characters that I created and take them off the show so I can bring them into other shows or in my solo shows. You know, they were introduced there on Child of the 70s, but I have the freedom to be able to continue them on. So we never know where they're going to pop up. But I'm in this other short film called Mother's Day Memories, which is about Alzheimer's, and I play the wife of the man whose mother has it. It's actually based on a true story, and it's also won a lot of awards, and it won the Indie Spirit Award from the Idlewild Festival of Cinema, and we're actually endorsed by Alzheimer's LA and a lot of national chapters because the Alzheimer's issue is still, you know, touches so many people's lives, and this film is really poignant because it's a true story, and you know, the filmmakers were just really, really proud of the film. Matthew Michael Ross and Bill Hubberston are the filmmakers on it. And we're actually, we're going up for, I think, awards consideration, which is kind of interesting now because no one can really screen anything in person. But I think we're going to be playing the Arena Cine Lounge Drive-In coming up as part of the An Evening of Shorts. So I don't know the dates yet, but I know that we're submitting the film for award season as part of the conversation because that issue is so important.
Now, I want to ask again to,
I'm proud to be part of it.
Is it possible to contribute to your organization? Any contributions?
They will be able to in 2021 because I've always had them be able to contribute at each event. Because I have like red carpet premieres and then the film, and then I host like a think tank that I moderate the Q&As, but they're panels, and I've had everyone from Lily to the experts on the panels. I mean, they're pretty robust panels, and people have always been able to donate to the organizations that are spotlighted within with each screening. And you know, I created the Hunt for Humanity Award in honor of Marcia Hunt, who's 103 years old. In fact, the film about her that Roger C. Memos made is going to premiere on TCM on December 11th, Marcia Hunt's University. And she worked with my father, and she was one of the Hollywood 10, you know, she was blacklisted. But that's not the reason I created the award. It's because Marcia was really the first activist in our industry to use her voice for social issues and to be a real humanitarian and put her career and her, you know, everything on the line for what she believed in. So I've created an award. She was the first recipient, but there will be another recipient of that coming up, I believe, in 2021. There's been a bit of gap of years since she got it, and I want her to be able to be there, at least even virtually, be part of the ceremony to give the award recipient the Hunt for Humanity Award. And my theme is Sheroes for Change. So all the films I'm showing are about women, made by women, or women's issues. And and spans everything from female empowerment to one fair wage to, you know, the animal issues. They're all different films. One's about feminism, and I'm still choosing them, but I'd like Marcia's film, you know, I'd like to be able to present that through the series, because I wasn't able to when we established the award. The movie wasn't finished yet, and we showed a film that starred Martin Sheen called Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain, about that issue. So that big, big international disaster in India from 1984, that the big industrial disaster. So it would just be great to be able to present that film, since the award is established for Marcia. And but Churros for Change is my continuing theme, so they will be able to donate through the foundation. That'll be set up sometime in 2021. I don't know exactly when, but I'm hoping to start screening some of the films in February that I've selected for the 10th and 11th installments.
Well, Kat, again, I'm going to say thank you for all that you do. I want to let everyone know that we are at the end of our show. I'm still getting a little feedback. It's, you know, if we can just turn that down a little bit. I just want to thank everyone for being here. If you enjoyed the show, and I hope you did, please go to my website, richardskipper.com, and put your thoughts about the show. That helps to boost me in other markets. I also want to let you know that tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, I will be sitting down to celebrate Tony Award winner Michelle Paulk. So I'm very excited about that show. And before we end the show, I always tell everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go out, go to your Facebook friends list, go to the 5th name that pops up, and give that person a call. Not an email, not a text, not a private message, but a phone call, and let them know what they mean to you. Now, before we sign off, Kat, I'm going to give you the final word. Anything you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish that we had, or just any message that you want to put out to the world right now. And again, I want to thank you for all you do, because as I said at the top of the show, you walk the walk, you talk the talk, and God bless the changes and the gifts that you give to the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wouldn't even know how to begin. I know that I'm still feedback. I'm still trying to give to charities and fundraisers even during this pandemic, and I'm spreading the word about PETA's 40th anniversary celebration virtual, their virtual party celebrating 40 years of bold work for helping animals on December 12th. So you can all get tickets, and there's an amazing silent auction online, and everything they do is to help animals. It's going to be star-studded. I know Lily's part of the celebration, Alec Baldwin. There's just I think Joaquin Phoenix is getting a special award, and his family. Every activist or animal rights activist that's been passionate about helping and saving our animals is going to be part of it. So I urge you all to look up PETA.org and get tickets and help them celebrate online their virtual 40th anniversary. That would be my number one parting word.
Thank you. And God bless you. I love you. You're the best.
Thank you so much, Richard. Have a great day.
You too.
You too.